What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Couple Things Interviews.
With Sean and Andrew.
Today we have two of our favorite people in the whole entire world, the best parenting gurus you'll ever find, ever, period. Sissy Goff and David Thomas.
We really are grateful to know these two. They have a podcast called the Raising Boys and Girls podcast, and they just released two new books. One is called Lucy Learns to Be Brave, A Lesson in Courage, and the other is called Owen Learns He Has What It Takes, A Lesson in Resilience. They've written dozens of books collectively, and we really look to them for wisdom as we navigate the parenting journey.
David and Sissy are both counselors at Daystar Ministries here in Nashville, Tennessee, and they are what I believe to be the best at what they do.
We talk about a couple of things on this show, including what it means to be courageous as a 3 to 5 year old, what it means to have resilience, how resilience differs from stubbornness, and how to instill these things like courage and resilience in your child. I thought it was a great conversation.
I thought it was a phenomenal conversation. I could talk to them all day, and I will be signing up to go see them personally because they're the best.
If you want to find out more about David and Sissy, as well as get access to their book, we'll link the information down below. And if you made it this far, please subscribe to the show and give it a rating. Anyway, without further ado, we bring you Sissy Goff and David Thomas.
I have so many questions for you guys.
I'm
so excited to talk to
so
y'all.
glad you guys are here.
I
I
think the
just
last
wish we could just catch up, though.
I
just
know.
wanna hear about
I know.
life.
Let's
and
go get dinner.
I
That'd
would
be
love
awesome.
that.
Yeah, we
That'd
would
be
love that.
so fun.
Yeah.
I have to admit, I feel like since the last time we spoke, I don't want to say I've become like slightly more nihilistic, but maybe I've gotten a little more jaded in terms of just a realization that no matter how well I parent, my kid's probably going to still end up needing counseling. You know what I'm saying? So like
Because it's something
so-
we did.
So
For sure.
I read the book Open by Andre Agassi. Have you read this? It's
No.
fascinating. And I first read it years ago, and it's all about how Andre Agassi's father was really hard on him, and like would make him hit 1,000 balls a day starting at age 5.
Not healthy.
And,
Not healthy.
Yes.
Yeah, not good. And I kind of frowned upon the father there. Obviously, you know, it's like, okay, maybe we overdid it there. But after reading it again and then having more conversations, being a little deeper in the parenting game, I realized like, okay, we're all going to go to counseling. So at least Andre Agassi got a couple of world tennis titles and whatever else.
At least he knew what the
So
problem was
this-
like pretty upfront.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it's like
had a
yeah,
name for it.
There wasn't a search for it. It
That's
was like,
true.
this is it. Yeah.
It's right there in front of us. So anyway, I know you guys have written these books, and I'm excited to dig into them. But that's where I'm at, and I just wanted to kind of launch the conversation. So thoughts?
Well, I love when you talk about repair, and I would jump in and say, what a gift, though, because I feel like so many of our parents were making mistakes, but not acknowledging.
Yeah.
We weren't talking about it.
Mm.
And so to be parents who are as thoughtful and aware and intentional as the two of you are means that you're going to go in and say, well, I really goofed that one up. And then in this age of anxiety in kids and
Mhm.
rampant perfectionism, like nothing we have seen in 30 years of counseling,
Mm.
what a gift for kids to feel like the two people that I respect most in the universe make mistakes.
Mm.
And so it's going to be okay that I do too.
Why is the anxiety rates and the rampant perfectionism on the rise? And why are you seeing that so much more in kids? And at what age are you seeing it?
You go
There-
first. Mary.
Well, there are a lot of things we could talk about. I mean, one of the things would be the pressure is greater than it's ever before, academically, athletically. You know, there
Yeah.
is such a push for kids to excel in all spaces of life, which I think makes it so much harder. Technology certainly contributes. Social media as they get older, younger. I had a psychiatrist say to me, even when kids are looking at devices, doing educational games, everything's so fast paced. We're a lot older than you all
Mhm.
are, but you know, we grew up on Leave It to Beaver,
Mm-hmm.
and the pace of things was so slow. And now it's like all the editing and and that
Mm.
almost activates their brains in a way that mimics the amygdala taking over. It kind of sends them into that. And then
Mm.
I think the thing we would want to say with so much grace to anybody who's listening is we're certainly a part of the problem.
Oh, for sure.
And we're stepping in and rescuing and helping kids pull out of hard things rather than learning that they are capable of doing the hard things.
And it really is a range of factors. Like I think we'd all love conveniently to just point our finger at one thing,
Yes.
blame it only on technology, and that plays a role. But The good news, I think, in that is we have influence over some of those factors, so we
Mm.
can bring about some change. But I think it's pushing against. So even back to what Sissy said about the acceleration of athletics. Well, just because culturally we've decided, 5 practices a week is good for elementary age kids, that doesn't mean we have to buy into those leagues. We can make a different
Gosh.
decision so that overscheduling, which we know is a key factor, doesn't become a part of our equation as a family, which is a contributing factor to kids.
Mm.
We had our
Oh,
first
yeah.
run-in with that recently. Sean and I actually were writing a book on essentially commitment.
Yeah.
And
Wow, are
I think we
you?
were right when we came in to talk to
Aw.
you guys, we were just in the ideation phase of that. But like we're stuck between, hey, we signed up for this league for our
Yeah.
3-year-old.
Yes.
And then the weekend comes around and it's like, hey, well, he also had a soccer practice this morning or he had a birthday party and he's wiped out. We shouldn't go to baseball, but like we're committed. And then it's like the
Mm.
balance of, well, we signed up for it and
Yes.
we want to show them, you follow
And
through and you
then
make good on your word. And then,
but then we'll laugh and we're like, "We don't care."
yeah.
And
Right.
then but it's like, are we then you have to keep your word and then you're trying to like teach all the I get
Mm.
so caught up in I feel like I've read too much now
Yes.
to where I'm like there's 5,000 things that I've learned running through my brain where I'm like tripping over myself trying to parent when at the end of the day I'm like he's tired. We're just going to stay home and sleep.
And that's it.
Yeah.
That right there is
Yeah.
it. Because, John, I think that's such a part of the problem too, is that I think not only we've been talking so much about not only are kids more anxious, but parents are more anxious.
Mm,
So much more.
And I believe part of the problem is we have access to more
Yeah.
information than we've ever. My mom read Dr. Spock, was
Yeah.
like the leading parenting
Yeah.
expert. The only takeaway for her was to smile a lot at your kids. And
Oh.
my sister and I both smile a lot, and that's, so it worked.
Mhm.
But now we have all these voices that are coming at us. We all four are trying to help in
Mhm.
that space, but we really believe it's making parents not trust their own gut,
Mhm.
that they're abdicating to experts rather than trusting themselves. And
mm.
Mhm.
that's what you need to do. Y'all are brilliant. Parents who are listening, God gives you insight into your kids like nobody else.
Yes.
Trust your gut.
It is funny though. We've slowly, not slowly actually. I feel like we've been thrown headfirst into the whole sports world, and we were on your guys' podcast talking about this.
Yes.
And it's
Mm.
funny. I can so easily and so freely speak about it from my domain with like
Mm.
gymnastics, and I like feel confident about it. But now that it's my kid, I have people pulling us aside, trying to like scout kids for elite leagues and like all. And
Wow, y'all.
I find myself getting wrapped into it where I'm like, oh,
Mm.
well, I don't know this sport. And maybe because I don't know this sport, maybe she should do this. And we went down one slow rabbit hole of being scouted and it just backfired. And we lost passion for it. We didn't want to go back.
Mhm.
All this stuff. And I was like, you know what? It was 100% my fault. And there's so much pressure people put on kids at such a young age. But being thrown into it, I feel like potentially the mistake we'll make is pulling them out of something rather than pushing them to be successful because I'm so afraid of pushing them to be successful and
Mm.
I don't know what that boundary
That
is.
makes so much sense.
Which brings us to your book series. One
Yes.
is on resilience. You guys recently launched the Daystar Dogs series. And there's 4 total. 2 are out now,
Yes.
and then 2 more in the fall. Is that right?
Correct.
That's awesome.
Is there more in the future? Because now I'm all excited
We will
about
be
that.
reading these every night for our kids.
But
Aw.
one of them that we see here is about resilience.
Mhm.
What do you mean when you say resilience?
Yeah. Well, I think if we were to put a simple definition to that, it is, just the capacity to do hard things. That when I feel scared or nervous or fearful or overwhelmed, that I can still figure out how to step forward into that experience. And I tell this funny story of I had a Labrador retriever that I trained to be a therapy dog. And he not only worked with me at Daystar, but we went to Vanderbilt Children's Hospital. And he loves kids, loves any interaction with kids. But when we went for that first visit, he was overwhelmed by the experience of all these people in white coats. They were pushing machines up and down the hallway, and to the point that it was debilitating for him. And so this dog who loves kids, wants to be with kids, couldn't even get in the room to be with this little boy who was like motioning for him to come in. So I had to carry the 70-pound dog into that room.
Nice.
We
And
needed y'all.
had he not been able to move forward into that experience, he would have missed the whole interaction, which
Mm.
was magical. What
Mm.
he experienced being with this little boy, what this little boy experienced being with him. And I think that's something we're hoping to help kids and parents think about. Like, what's something that does feel overwhelming for me? Like, I can remember growing up, this is going to date me, but back in the day when Opryland theme park was
Yeah.
in existence here in Nashville, we used to go every summer. We had season passes, and the Wabash Cannonball was the biggest roller coaster. And
Yes.
my sister, who instinctively had a lot more bravery in her than I did, just boarded that thing as soon as she was tall enough.
Mhm.
And I was so fearful. And I
Mm.
just did not love the experience of my younger sister riding this roller coaster that I was
Sure.
afraid to.
Mhm.
But there was something about, and I can even remember getting in line and getting out of line,
Mhm.
getting in line and getting close to
Mm.
boarding and backing
Mm.
out. And there was something about finally getting to the point where I just kept trying that built this competence that I think leads to confidence that we rob kids of when we don't allow them to take those kind of opportunities, take advantage.
But we have 2 kids who are polar opposites.
Mm.
One who will jump on any roller coaster at any time, and one who will not, but wants to. And it's such this hard dynamic for a parent to jump back and forth between almost talking one off the ledge because they will do too much
Mhm.
and they have zero fear, and then almost trying to tame a frustration as a parent of like, what is this debilitating fear that you've conjured
Yes.
up in your head, and how can I play it down
Mm.
but also encourage you? And is it an attention seeking thing? Like, how do you balance that on both sides to be healthy?
Mm. Well, we
They're
love to
like,
talk
come in.
about no, we love to
Yeah.
talk about like muscles
Yeah.
with kids, that we're growing these different muscles, and different kids have different muscles that they
Mm.
need to
Mhm.
develop. Just like academically, different kids have different things. And so talking about it like that with them,
Mhm.
where one might need to grow his or her courage and the other might need to grow his or her awareness or
Mm.
self-control, that we just are talking about it like that.
Mhm.
But I would say specifically with the one
Mhm.
whose fear gets the
Mhm.
best of him or her. One of the things I talk about in the Lucy books is how fear tries to play tricks on us,
Mhm.
and it tells us things that little things are medium, medium things are big, and big things seem impossible. And
Mhm.
so, helping speak the truth and helping them learn to right size their feelings in response to whatever the scary thing is. And we have tools built into both books. I have a little thermometer in the Lucy book where they can start to figure out, okay, this really is just a 2. This
Mhm.
is a 9. This is a 10. It's something we use all the time in therapy.
Mm.
And David has feelings charts that
Yeah.
can help in all of those spaces.
Actually,
So
could you
hope.
show the feelings
Mhm.
chart on the back? Is
It's
that
so
the
cute.
pictures of the
Mhm.
little doggy pictures? It's great.
Yes, I'd love to.
Yeah, I love it.
It
Sorry.
was fun to put this in the book
Look at
and
that. It's
Mm.
amazing.
think about kids,
Aw.
even kids who can't even read,
Yeah.
learning to identify how they feel, because I think we all can learn a little easier with a dog.
Mm. That's great. So I'm curious because I think I am under the belief that in some ways, awareness with feelings and the courage to do hard things are mutually exclusive. Like in my
Mm,
mind, in order for me to do the scary, audacious thing, I need to turn off the feeling
Mhm.
of like, um, yeah, I just like turn it off. You know what I'm saying? So I skew more towards forget about the feelings and let me just do the hard things. You know what I'm saying? That sounds like a me issue, and I probably need to come see you guys more. But does that have you ever seen like can they live and coexist, being fully aware with my feelings and not letting those like that awareness prevent me from jumping into the hard thing?
mm,
A great
I know. I
question.
love that question.
I had 2 thoughts as you were asking. I think one is, fear gets such a bad rap. And I think if we're to think about it within the context of the question you're asking, if I don't feel afraid, I really never have the opportunity to build courage.
Mhm.
Mm,
Like, you know, fear is fertile ground for courage to grow. So it
mm,
has to be there. That's, I think, one great way to think about it. And that's maybe the upside to
mhm,
fear. I think, secondly, I was thinking as you were asking that question that we talk so often about, and I felt it when you were asking the question about the differences with your kids,
Mhm.
that, the kids who are the most anxious are often the kids who are also the brightest.
Mm-hmm.
They're kids who think deeply, feel
Mhm.
deeply, care deeply. And,
Yes.
if I'm a deep thinker, that's going to make me a great student. And it also means I'm more vulnerable to overthinking. If I'm a
Mm-hmm.
person who feels and cares deeply, I'm probably a really loyal friend. And I'm maybe a great big brother. And I could go off the deep end over something insignificant. So, back to the roller coaster story, I
Mm,
was a firstborn, and I had a younger sister who, again, was a lot like the other kid you were asking about. And
Yep.
she just would take two opportunities and sometimes wouldn't think those through enough, and I
Mm-hmm.
would overthink those. And so, how could we bring the strengths of both of those things into the equation where they can live side by side instead
mhm.
of just need to carve all that part out?
Yeah. Does that just take practice or? Yeah.
I think it does. And I think it's also for us as parents calling out the superpower of that. Helping kids
Yes.
see it's two sides of the same coin. It's a double-edged sword.
Mm-hmm.
Like the thing that makes you overthink things sometimes is also where you ask the best questions. You
Mm.
think
Mm-hmm.
so deeply. And the fact that you do worry too much also comes from the place that you care so much. It's why you're a great big brother or a great big sister. It's why you're so attuned to your grandparents when they visit us. Like calling out the superpowers of that while also looking at the other side for the growth opportunity.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
I joke. I'm sorry. I
Keep
just
going.
because
I
I've made this
I
joke.
want to ask so many questions.
I've made the
That's
joke
sweet.
actually a few times in the last couple of days where our family motto, jokingly, is if you're gonna be dumb, you got to be tough. And it's like, honestly,
We don't say that to our
no, that's not our
children.
official family motto.
Oh my
But
gosh. Let's first say we're not just saying.
but it's in line with that idea of like, hey, just do the hard thing, and
Mm.
it's like ignorance is bliss, kind of. So I guess it's not sustainable or good to not have awareness over your feelings, but is it also not good to have too much awareness and be too much of an overthinker that it prevents you? Like, there's two extremes, I guess.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, and I think even culturally, what you're talking about is part of where we're so anxious. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like the two ends are almost where we've swung, where
Mm-hmm.
as a world, we used to not talk about our
right,
feelings.
right, right.
And so kids were more able, I think they seemed more resilient, they seemed more
Yeah,
capable because they weren't aware of the
Mm-hmm.
fear. They weren't talking about those emotions. And so now we've camped out, we've almost overcorrected and
yeah,
camped out in talking about feelings without helping kids work through them.
yeah.
And it feels like the two things together are where the magic is, not
Yes.
just, it's why we have a lot of books where we talk about understanding help and hope.
Mm,
And we're kind of landing and understanding. I had a girl that I was working with one time, which to your point about getting attention,
Mm-hmm.
she said, I've realized that when I have panic attacks is when my mom's most
mm,
nurturing to me.
mm,
Mm.
And I think, and she went on to say, I don't think it's why I have them, but I think it's why I don't stop them.
mm,
Interesting.
And we talk so much about whatever we pay the most
Mm-hmm.
attention to is what's most
Mm-hmm.
reinforced. And so we want to pay as much attention to offering a lot of empathy and attunement. And that sounds really hard. And I can tell you feel a lot of fear. What do you think you can do about it? What's going to help? That
mm.
it's both places. It's understanding and coping and
Mm-hmm.
working through the feelings and undergirding it with these messages of you're capable. You've got what it takes. You're brave. All those truths we want to instill.
So the gentle parenting gets a bad rap because it's all like, hey, tell me how you're
Mm-hmm.
feeling. And
Right.
so you're saying actually that's good as long as it's coupled with the maybe action oriented type of question or follow up with that. Yeah.
Yes. And I think it's the action oriented question and opportunity
Mm,
because
Mhm.
sometimes we're short circuiting the opportunity for
mm.
them to do hard things and not
Mm-hmm.
giving them a chance.
Man, that's super good. I like that.
We're on the opposite end of the spectrum where we probably open up way too many terrifying opportunities for our kids. We're like, you got this. And they're like, what? What are we doing?
Yeah.
Let's go to one side of the spectrum. The overthinker, the deep feeler,
Yes.
the very sensitive
Yes.
perfectionist, just in their thoughts 100% of the time. They care more about how we're feeling than anything else.
Mm.
How can you reinforce and encourage them to step out of that a little bit and have more confidence in themselves to be their own little person? Because I don't know where it comes from either, which is
Mm.
interesting.
I think we would argue that it is so connected to core temperament. Like I'm fascinated by how many firstborns fit the very description
Yes.
of what you just described. And that's
Mm-hmm.
not to say 100% of firstborns do, but it is to say a high percentage do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's not surprising that a higher percentage of firstborns struggle with anxiety and depression. And
Mm.
so it again is that double-edged sword of the things that make us extraordinary, the
Mhm.
things that can get in the way at times. And so, you know, back to that age-old wisdom of we can't tame what we can't name. I think
Mhm.
it starts with we have to talk about it. Like the
Mhm.
very things that make you extraordinary are the things that get in the way.
Mm.
And so, you know, I
Mm.
think back to the roller coaster example, like I could have stood in line and overthought all the
Mhm.
possibilities 1,000 times over. And then there becomes a point where I just have to get out of my head and get in the seat and pull down the harness.
Mhm.
Mm.
And I think we can give so much attention to the thoughts at times that they become the greatest barrier.
Mhm.
You do a great job of
Mm.
talking about that.
Well, the thing I was thinking about too is I think in those things, in wanting kids to move toward doing the hard thing or even do the skills we know they can use to get out of their thoughts,
Mhm.
because we know those skills make a difference for us. As soon as we learn about deep breathing or grounding techniques, we're like, oh, yeah, I'm all over this.
Mhm.
Well, kids aren't.
Mhm.
And in fact, they would rather your kids would rather you two be their coping strategies than have to do the hard work of learning to use coping strategies on their
Mhm.
own. And so working through the thoughts, the feelings. And so we will often, and we do it kind of differently with girls and boys, but we will have kids earn brave beads
Mhm.
when they not only do hard things like, I was going to say jump across a creek. Y'all can come up with much better than that. But not only when they do things like that, but also when they take 3 deep breaths, when
Mhm.
they
Mm.
go to their space where we've stacked with coping strategies that David outlines beautifully with boys. I call them brave beads, and I will tell parents get a jar that is sitting on their chest of drawers. They watch the beads or marbles or pom poms accrue, and then they get to trade them in for something like, a family outing or an outing with one of the two of you, or they get to stay up 15 minutes later, or whatever the
Mhm.
thing is that they want. Y'all come up with the incentives together. What do you
Mm.
call them for boys?
I call them calming coins a lot with
Mhm.
boys because I think back to your question, like those big emotions can
Mm.
so get in the way. And
Yeah.
and when am I in the
Mm.
practice again, not just of naming those feelings, but figuring out what I need to do to get from
Yeah.
level 10 down to level 2.
Mm.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're learning that for the first time right now. We're in that phase.
Yes, it's
Yes,
a
which
learned
is
skill.
It is.
it's also hard. We're in this era right now where masculinity is being talked about a lot and how
Mm.
you're wanting to encourage emotions and to foster the right things in kids and not just teach boys to like, you know, what's it called? Pack it all down,
Stuff it.
Yeah.
stuff it. But there is this interesting thing happening with our boys right now where you're seeing such huge emotions and anger and like
Mm-hmm.
rage come out and you're
Mm-hmm.
just like, I don't, where did this come from? What do you do with this? And how do you calm it or teach them to calm it? And it's been a interesting roller coaster going back and forth between
Mm.
between the two.
Mm.
I've also found it a challenge as a parent there's like a bit of selfishness involved because when the kid wants to use you as a coping strategy, it's adorable
I
and it's
know, and it's so
precious
nice.
and I
Yes.
want it. But also trying to fight that, like, yeah, I'll coddle you and I just
Mm.
love every second of that.
Mm-hmm.
But trying to instill the teaching lessons, it's like it's a battle of the wills, I guess.
It was actually really sweet speaking to what you guys were saying with the jars.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't connect the dots until just now. Our daughter, yesterday, there was some scenario. It didn't seem like a big scenario at all that needed, help with parents, but she's like, "Mommy, I'm gonna go set up a calm corner for us."
Yeah.
And she set it
Wow.
up on her own.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
not
that's
something we've ever
amazing.
done in our household. It's
Yeah.
from
Wow.
school. And she set it up and she went and got books and she's like, "Can you please keep this here for me? Because this
Mm.
will be my calm corner." And I was like, that is
Mm.
incredible.
Yeah.
That she's like
And how old is she?
she's 5.
That's
It's
Yeah.
incredible.
amazing. That is amazing.
Yeah.
Shout out to her teachers for that.
Yeah, for
Because
awesome.
that is
sure.
not us.
That's
Well,
Not
so
and y'all,
awesome.
the work that you're doing with her and that she's learning at school.
Mhm.
But I mean, really, the reason we wrote these books, I mean, we have workbooks for 8,
6 to 12-year-olds.
6 to 12 year
Mhm.
olds. But we thought the earlier, and we
Mhm.
know science backs up, the earlier we're intervening, the better off these kids are going to be for the
Yes.
long haul. And
Mm.
so the fact that she's doing that at that age is just remarkable, and that
Yeah.
y'all are reinforcing all those things.
Another scenario. This was me as a
Okay.
kid. So you have the kid who won't speak up.
Mm,
They won't use their voice, and everything is like they're shy, they're quiet, they're afraid to answer a question, they're afraid to look you in the eye. How do you work on that scenario?
I had this family that came in to see me years ago, and their son was seeing David, and they brought their daughter in to see me, and they said, "Really, she's fine,
Yeah.
but he is so controlling of her older brother. He comes in and chooses her clothes for school each day."
Oh.
And she said, "My whole goal for her to see you is I want you to teach her how to say no,
Mhm.
because I want her to learn how to say no with her brother,
Mhm.
so that when she's 16 and sitting in a car with a boy
Mhm.
who tries to kiss her or do
Yeah.
something that she is not
Yes.
comfortable with, she feels like she can sock him in the nose."
Yeah.
Literally is what the
Mm.
mom said. I said, that is a great reason for that child to be in counseling. But I think it's practice.
Yeah.
I think it's helping others step back,
Mhm.
not answering for her. And maybe you even include that in brave beats.
Mhm.
You get a brave beat every time you look a grown up in the eye
Mhm.
and you ask a question, practicing asking questions around the dinner table, using their voice, the things y'all are probably doing already.
Sissy, if it's not rehashing what we've already discussed, Owen is about resilience and then Lucy's about courage.
Mhm.
Yes.
Can you define what does courage mean for a young child?
Mm.
What,
I would say courage is believing that they are capable to step in to something that feels scary, which sounds a lot like resilience
Mm.
too.
yeah.
But I think it's that sense of I have it in me to
Mm.
do what I need to do in this moment. And the way the book goes, so Lucy was my little dog that practiced with me for 15 years. And
Mhm.
the first day I had Lucy, she held her little paw up at me like she was waving, and then I noticed she would just do that. And so when we started puppy school,
Mhm.
I said, "How can I encourage her to do it?" And they said, "Well, start calling it a wave and
Mhm.
teaching her to do it on command." And so she did. I mean, her whole life, every kid that would come in, I'd say, "Lucy, wave at so and so," and she would. And kids are
Aw.
so scared to be in counseling,
Yeah.
and so it would just melt them. And anyway, there's this whole theme in the book of you have these special gifts, and the more you know that you're loved
Mm.
by God, by your parents, the more you're going to feel safe to use the gifts that God has given you and not believe kind of that old idea of the worry monster.
Mhm.
Those voices are going to be stronger about who you are than the worry monster playing tricks on you and telling you that you're not capable.
Mm.
And so helping them learn that again at 3, 4, 5 can make such a difference for them as soon as they can start to understand it.
I've gotten caught up a couple times in trying to teach courage. So, like, a 3-year-old is just kind of imagining monsters. Actually, there was
Mhm.
this toy in his room. I still can't believe this with glow in the dark eyeballs.
No.
I don't know where we got this, but we turn off the lights and it's sitting on a shelf. And, like, yeah, it's scary for
That
me.
is
and
scary.
it's scary for
I felt so bad. I went in his room 3 times because he kept talking about something was like it was eyes looking at him. And as a parent, I'm like, it's not
Aw.
there. It's not there. It's a reflection of something. And I was like, buddy, it's totally fine. And I kept thinking it's some sort of picture, like a reflection. And I was just trying to like, buddy, you're safe. We did our prayers. We do prayers again. You're safe. It's not there. It's not there. And then he kept crying. And I was like, buddy, what are, and so I finally sat in his room with him, turned the lights out, and glowing eyeballs.
Yeah. Anyway,
Whoever whoever did that needs to be fired. A child's toy.
But
Glow in the dark eyeballs.
it's hard because I don't want to kind of over exaggerate the monster topic.
I
And so, like,
know.
I don't
Right.
want to. I don't want to have to talk more about monsters than I need to in order to talk about courage. So
Yes,
it's like,
you're right.
you know what I'm saying?
Yes, with little ones, probably worry monster is not the best language.
Yeah.
You can call it worry brain versus smart brain.
Yeah.
Okay.
There are a lot of different options. Worry bug is another one. We
Yeah.
often have kids come up with a name for theirs.
Mm.
So whatever that voice is and what
Mhm.
it feels like.
Hmm.
I had one girl who decided she was going to name hers Bob. I have no idea why she picked the name Bob. Another who said, "I'm going to call mine princess worry because then I get to be the queen and boss the princess around, which I love. You have
I
Mhm.
boys
love
who
that.
call it
A
things
lot
like,
of boys call it the Hulk because they feel like they get so
Uh-huh.
angry and explosive when it happens.
yeah,
Wow.
Oh,
yeah,
interesting.
Yeah.
So just like putting like
putting their own
it's their
spin
other
on it.
person.
Yes.
I had a high school girl last week who reminded me that she had named hers Tiffany after Tiffany and Mean Girls.
Yep.
So that felt fitting
I
too.
love that. I
hmm
love that.
I don't know if I've seen Mean Girls.
Oh.
Maybe I should. Okay. But go
And
ahead.
it's a classic.
Okay.
It's a classic no kid should watch these days.
Exactly. Yes.
Which
yes.
is shocking. When you
Yes.
go back to watch movies, I'm like, this is
Oh.
horrible. Okay, a couple questions I want to make sure we get in before we lose track of time. How, with anxiety,
hmm
perfectionism, everything that we're seeing in the uptick these days, what are signs that parents can look for to know that this is maybe something their kid is struggling with and they could either work on or get help with?
I think it often looks different with boys and girls. So we could
Okay.
even talk about unique to gender.
Yep.
You want
hmm
to talk about girls first?
Yeah, I think a lot of girls, kind of big picture, we talk about how boys generally can be more explosive and
Mhm.
girls more implosive.
Mm.
And so a lot, and I read a study years ago that talked about when something goes wrong in a boy's world, he blames someone else. And when something goes wrong in a girl's world, she blames,
Herself.
Mm.
right.
Every
S-
time.
Yes. So girls tend to go inward.
Yeah.
And what's confusing, I think, for girls and boys, the statistics, girls are twice as likely, but boys are taking to get help more. And I think it's because you go to the parent teacher conference and the teacher says,
Yeah.
I wish every child in my class acted just like your daughter. And anxiety's fueling it so
Mhm.
much of the time. And so they're the kids who are making great grades and the teacher's just praising them all the time, but it's really inside they're so locked up trying to get it right and
Mm.
perfectionistic. And so it's so important for us to pay attention to that. And for those kids, often it's going to show up as a lot of physical issues. They're going to have recurring tummy aches, headaches with no physical explanation for it. Or another way that I think it can show up in girls and guys are we talk about it like the one loop roller coaster at the fair. So we all have intrusive thoughts. If we're not anxious, the intrusive slash worst case scenario thought comes in and it goes out. But for kids, it gets stuck and it loops around and around. And that could be being away from my mom or dad. It could be, I'm going to get sick. It could be, I'm going to fail. But that gets stuck. And so when they have repetitive questions based on one topic, often at bedtime, it's about the schedule. What's happening tomorrow? Then what's happening after that? Then what's happening after that? And we kind of fall for
Mm.
answering the questions, but we want to be aware of the loops and
Mm.
give it away. And boys, what would you say?
Well, I would only say that I think if we were going to generalize,
Mhm.
overgeneralize, is showing up as more perfectionistic and pleasing with girls. I think boys are more angry and controlling.
Mm.
So when they're losing it, a disproportionate response to something insignificant. So I talked to the family last week who they have an 8-year-old son and they were eating out as a family at his favorite restaurant. Well, they got there and the wait was an hour. So they're like, we got to change gears. And his response to that was so explosive, the
Mm.
dad had to take him home. Like there was no rebounding.
Yeah.
It's not even like we're going to go home and just eat what's in the cabinet. It's like we're still going to go out to eat, just not the place you imagine. So it's that I had an idea in my head of exactly how this was going to happen, and I cannot let go of that. So
Yeah.
I'd say those two. The only other thing I'd say to your question is I do think sometimes anxious boys in a classroom can look underfocused and restless and fidgety, the very things we would think about when we think about ADHD. So
Mm.
I've lost count with a number of boys I've seen over the years who were identified as likely having ADHD, that when we did some exploration, there actually was an undercurrent of anxiety that was underneath it. If we can address those
Mm.
symptoms, often some of what looks like ADHD in the academic space starts to lessen. So that's
Mm.
another feature of how it can show up.
You say girls are twice as likely to seek help than boys?
Girls are twice as likely to have anxiety, as are women.
Oh, interesting.
But boys are taken for help more because they
Gotcha.
go outward so much of the time with it. That anger
Interesting.
shows up.
And girls are the perfectionists. So
Mhm.
a lot of times people are like, it's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the great thing is, I think little ones often it can show up as rigidity and control, and they can be explosive, which is going to sound crazy. But I will say to parents, if she's getting angry at you, it is a gift because there is a point in her development that
Mm.
she will think that's not appropriate anymore
Mm.
and it'll turn on her. And
Mhm.
so if it's coming out at you, you have this beautiful opportunity
Mm.
to teach her how to be more gentle with herself, how to give herself grace, how to work with that angry voice before it unleashes that venom on herself.
Mhm.
It takes quite a lot of discipline
Oh
and
my
awareness as a
gosh.
parent, which I feel like back to kind of your opening statements, my revelation that I had and just talking with you guys is like it's not about optimizing to try to be the perfect parent or put them on the perfect routine or nutrition plan. It's like no, optimize for awareness. Like
Mm,
how can we kind of notice the most about kids and about ourselves and then like navigate with hope whatever best discernment you have at the time, but like that
love that.
discipline of like realizing, hey, this is an opportunity and I shouldn't get frustrated because she's turning it's super hard as a parent. And I'm even thinking
Mhm.
like the restaurant example,
Yeah.
as a father, how do I differentiate my resilience as a man versus like stubbornness as you know what I'm saying? Like sometimes those feel like they might overlap in a tough way. Like, no, son, we're gonna stay here, and even though we're all miserable, like is that me being resilient or stubborn? You know what I'm saying? I don't know,
That's a
but
great question.
You know, the more I talked that through with this dad, he said to me, which I thought was so wise, he said, David, instead of taking him home, I wish there was a park across the street. I wish we'd gone across the
Yeah.
street
mm,
and I had had him run some laps, like just
Yeah.
get some of the intensity, the physicality of the emotion out, and
mm,
then to see if we couldn't talk through some of why he was in so much distress over a restaurant change.
mm,
Mhm.
mm.
But he said, I just was over attending to the behavior and not digging into what was underneath. And I
Mhm.
think I could have accomplished more if we'd done that.
It's you just feel like these visceral reactions as a
Yeah.
parent sometimes where it's
Yes.
like your hands start sweating or like the anger just hits or and
Mhm.
it's like
Yes.
man creating white space as a parent it just it's a practice. Thank
It
It's
goodness
hard.
is.
for it, but I keep
It's really
interrupting you.
hard.
I'm sorry.
No, no, I was just gonna say something really cute, a self-awareness thing. Same child. Um, but she started recognizing she'll tell us when she's mad hungry,
Oh my
That's
gosh.
and
great.
It's
How
it's so
amazing.
sweet and
Wow.
it's so quiet, but she's like, "Mommy,
Yeah.
I'm mad hungry right
I
now."
am
And I'm
yeah.
like, "Good for you. We're
yeah.
gonna go get you food." And it's
Yes.
so sweet.
Awesome.
It really is
I don't
great.
know
Wow.
how who taught her it, but mad hungry. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I feel that. I feel that.
Mm,
Mm.
But the self-awareness side is interesting and hard, and I'm still trying to figure out how to do it
mm,
99% of the time. Um, what ages are you looking for signs, and what age can you bring a kid into counseling?
mm.
Or should you? Like, what age should you start?
Statistically, anxiety, the average age used to be 8. Now we're seeing it drop to 6 with signs as young as 4 and 5.
Oof.
And so I think you can see some of that rigidity and desire for control at
Yes.
4, maybe even at 3 sometimes, but also
Mhm.
developmentally, they're learning to work through those things anyway. And so we don't want to jump on and think, oh no, my child has clinical anxiety at this point. But I think it's good if you have a child who's leaning towards a lot of rigidity and control to practice more flexibility.
Mhm.
And how can we strengthen that muscle back to that idea and maybe use
Mm.
grade beads as a part of it? And with counseling, I think being a good student of development, we certainly have had parents of 2-year-olds who will call our office, and there's a lot of parenting that you can do
Yeah.
to help at that point. But at 5, 6, I mean,
Mm.
what we would say to parents is start reading the books, start having the
Mhm.
conversations,
Yes.
see what you can do at home. If they're older, we wrote the workbooks, Strong and Smart and Braver, Stronger, Smarter, to kind of be a first line of defense. Try this
Mhm.
first. If it feels like the needle's not moving, then take them to get counseling. But we
Mm.
see kids really 8 or 9 and up because we do more talk therapy, pulling in a lot of different
Mhm.
elements. Play therapy for younger kids can be really helpful too.
Is
Mm.
counseling great for maintenance? Like, not in the sense of like, I see something wrong with my child who's 6, but is that something you should put in your toolbox to say, every quarter, let's take our 6-year-old in, or 8 or 7?
We see a lot of that with parents. We do what we call parent consultations, where
Mhm.
parents come in for what probably feels like a well visit with a pediatrician. Like,
Yeah.
we're not here because we're sick, but we want to just ask some questions and think
Quarterly,
on what we could
even,
be
or
doing intentionally. And yes, often once a quarter. And I think, particularly for parents of younger kids to be able to think more strategically about what are some things we could do to lay a good, solid foundation on the front side of development. So I think it absolutely can be helpful.
Yes. And my favorite story, I may have told you this before, but ever a mom brought her daughter in. Her daughter didn't want to be there. And she said, why are you making me do this? And she said, honey, my job as your mom is to build your team. And we're going to have people on your physical team that are your doctors. We're going to have people on your academic team that are your
Mhm.
teachers. Of course, I would have someone on your emotional team.
Mhm.
And so we're going to go and see this person and we're going to establish a relationship. And then as you're growing up, when you need somebody, you already know who your person is. And we'll
Mm.
go right back into
I
seeing.
love that.
Isn't
Mm.
that beautiful?
I love that.
Build your team.
I've heard you speak before about the fine line between like overvigilance as a parent and under. Could you unpack that a little bit for us? Because we do live in a time and age where it's like, man, I can learn anything I need to, or I should know everything I need to, and let me just implement all these different things. But where is it too much? You know?
Well, I think culturally we're at too much.
Mhm.
I mean, I just think we're at hypervigilance now to the degree that kids almost feel too much power.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
Hmm.
what we would say to parents over and over is the very best gift you can give your kids is to do your own work. Back to your awareness
Mm.
idea. Because just like anxiety is contagious, and it certainly is, so is health. So are
Mhm.
coping strategies.
Mhm.
So is the kids we love watching us use these strategies, even if we're anxious.
Mhm.
I mean, we had parents who were anxious, likely, but y'all may have. My parents were not using a lot of coping strategies in front of me. They weren't
Mhm.
modeling that. And I can't imagine, I would rather have an anxious parent who's using strategies in front of kids than a parent who is denying their emotions,
Mhm.
because that's never going to work for the child either. Rather than, this is what life looks like. There are hard things that happen, and I can use tools that help me work through it in a healthy, productive way that makes me feel brave and resilient.
I remember when you spoke at the Family Mate event. I will
Yes.
never forget this. It's like ingrained in my head. But you said, I don't remember exactly how you said it, but you said make a long list of everything you do in a day.
Mm,
And you said like 80% of that your kid should be doing for themselves. And I was like,
mm.
oh, yeah, I
Mm.
like that.
Yeah.
And it did. It changed how we operated at home.
Wow.
I was like, okay, you're
That
going to
is
get your
awesome.
silverware and your plate, and you're going to go fill up your cup of water, and you're going to, they serve themselves their dinner. And I was like, I did all of this,
Mm.
and now you should do it. And they love it.
That is so great.
Yeah.
Way to go, Sean.
Thank you. Are you serious?
I'm really grateful for you guys. Is Daystar Ministries like spiritual based? Is it spiritual based counseling? So backstory, I guess experienced sports induced anxiety or something when I went to the pros my rookie year, and you described that anxiety as like a looping thought. I'd never had this in my life, and I'd played in front of bigger crowds for more high pressure moments in a game, but I showed up in Kansas City, and I was just like paralyzed by this thought of whatever the like long snapping thing was.
Mhm.
But I was like, okay, you're gonna roll this snap back, Andrew. You're gonna roll it back, and that's terrible in my role. And I just couldn't get that out of my mind. So much so that we'd have team meetings, and I would have to like bite my tongue physically to prevent myself from yelling out these weird. And I'm like, what is happening? I just couldn't get it out of my mind. But as I've kind of grown through that, and it took years to do it, but like the idea of uh, a God that was way higher than the NFL was tough for me to comprehend, but like so powerful. And as you said, right sizing things. It's like, oh, shoot, this matters. Yes. I'm not saying it doesn't matter, but like the right sizing of it really allows you to move way more freely and have like a healthy attachment, or maybe a healthy detachment towards these little things that we might get hung up on. So I just love your guys' perspective. So thankful that you share it. I know you've written 13 books now. Is that right?
Go buy every single one of them.
And you've
Sweet.
written 10.
Go buy
Yes.
every single
You
one
guys
of
just
them.
crank it.
Listen to their
Real
podcasts,
kind.
buy
So
everything
kind.
they do.
You guys
Oh,
crank it
sure,
out.
all
It's
the
crazy.
best.
I
It's
will say,
amazing.
for how many like you said, we live in a culture where there is way too much information, and everybody lives on a certain side and says this is the right way or this is the wrong way. This is how
Yes.
you mess up a kid. This is how you do
Mm.
right. everything you guys do is so reassuring as a parent. They're tangible, they're easy, and they just make sense. And it's not polarizing, controversial. It's just to raise good humans
Mm.
and not to raise like an elite athlete like
Mm.
people are doing these days.
Yeah. You've definitely positively
Yeah.
impacted our parenting journey. So
Yes.
thank you.
Thanks, y'all.
Guys,
That
yeah.
means
so
more than you
kind.
know.
Yeah.
We love time with the two
Yes,
of you
we do.
always.
Sign us up for a well visit. We're
Okay,
gonna
Okay,
call.
good.
We're gonna come in.
How can people buy your books?
Yes.
Anywhere books are sold.
And
Amazon.
and if you go to our website, raisingboysandgirls.com, it'll take you to the podcast, all our books. We try to put out a lot of easy, reachable content on social media as well. So it'll kind of link you to everything.
You guys do a great
Thank
job
you.
with that. So it's on
Please
Amazon
keep doing it.
and the website. Is that right?
Yes.
What I love about the tools that you provide, so you have the feelings thermometer, is that right?
Yes.
And the feelings chart
Mhm.
Yes.
is, as a guy who is working on my emotional awareness, to me, it's like a great default, like, hey, I don't know what to do in this situation with my 5-year-old daughter. Let's go to the feelings chart. Or you know what I'm saying? It's like I
Yeah.
don't have to know it all because it's like, okay, let's just do this.
Yeah.
So it's an easy third thing to incorporate. So thank you for that. But
Thank you both.
yeah. And for those listening that don't know about Sissy and David, we'll link their information down below. Link to the book, link to their website. But thank you guys so much.
Y'all are the best.
Thank
It's so
you.
fun to be with
Aw,
y'all.
Thank you guys.